I remember the exact moment everything shifted, though at the time it felt ordinary. My husband Daniel had invited me to attend the annual corporate dinner at his company. It wasn't unusual. He worked late most nights, talked about quarterly targets and team performance, and occasionally mentioned his boss with a tone that hovered somewhere between admiration and tension. I never thought much about it. I trusted him. I trusted us. The dinner was held at a quiet, upscale restaurant just outside the city. Soft lighting, polished floors, muted conversations. The kind of place where deals are made over wine and polite laughter. Daniel seemed distracted from the moment we arrived. His hand rested on my lower back, guiding me forward, but his eyes were elsewhere, scanning the room as if searching for someone. Or avoiding someone. I asked him if everything was okay. He smiled too quickly and said he was just nervous about a potential promotion. That word lingered between us. Promotion. It explained the new suits, the extra hours, the sudden insistence that I attend this event. I squeezed his hand and told him I was proud of him. He kissed my forehead, but it felt mechanical. We were seated at a long table with his colleagues. Across from us sat his boss, Mr. Carter, a composed man in his late 40s with a voice that carried without effort. I had met him only once before in passing. He greeted me warmly, his gaze holding mine a second longer than necessary. I dismissed the discomfort as my imagination. Dinner progressed with harmless conversation, work milestones, market trends, light jokes. Daniel laughed when others laughed, but he barely touched his food. I noticed his phone light up several times beside his plate. Each time he turned it face down without checking it. That wasn't like him. He was usually glued to it. Halfway through the evening, Mr. Carter tapped his glass gently, drawing everyone's attention. The conversations faded into expectant silence. He stood, adjusting his jacket, and began speaking about the company's growth, the team's dedication, the importance of loyalty and trust. His words were smooth, deliberate. I felt Daniel's leg bouncing under the table. Then Mr. Carter shifted the tone. He began talking about personal integrity, about how success means nothing without honesty at home. There was an odd weight behind his words, a subtle sharpness. I sensed Daniel stiffen beside me. Mr. Carter's eyes moved down the table until they landed on us. There's something I've learned recently, he continued, voice calm but pointed. Business partnerships can survive mistakes. Marriages, however, rarely do. A few people chuckled awkwardly, unsure where this was going. My heart started to pound, though I didn't know why. He lifted his glass slightly in our direction. Daniel, you've been one of my most promising managers. Ambitious, driven, willing to do what it takes to get ahead. Daniel forced a smile. Thank you, sir. But ambition, Mr. Carter said, can blur boundaries. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I turned to look at my husband. His face had drained of color. Mr. Carter continued. I believe transparency is important, especially when it involves families who sacrifice so much for our careers. The word families hit me hard. My mind raced, trying to understand the direction of this speech. He looked directly at me. You must be very proud of him. I nodded slowly. I am. There was pity in his eyes. Pity. I think, he said carefully, you deserve to know that your husband's dedication to this company has extended beyond late nights at the office. Silence swallowed the table. Someone shifted in their seat. A fork clinked against a plate. I felt the blood rush to my ears. I waited for Daniel to interrupt, to laugh it off, to say this was some strange misunderstanding. He said nothing. Mr. Carter's voice remained even. Over the past 3 months, Daniel has been involved in a relationship with a colleague. The words didn't register at first. They hovered in the air, abstract and unreal. Relationship. Colleague. 3 months. I stared at Daniel. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The room blurred around me. My chest tightened as if someone had pressed a weight against it. I wanted to stand up, to scream, to demand clarification. Instead, I sat frozen. Mr. Carter continued, almost clinically. As his employer, I have policies to enforce. As a husband myself, I felt a moral obligation. Daniel finally spoke, his voice strained. Sir, this isn't the place. You're right, Mr. Carter cut in. It isn't. But you chose not to tell her. So now I am. The humiliation was suffocating. Colleagues avoided my gaze. A few whispered to each other. I felt exposed, like my private life had been dragged into fluorescent light. I managed to whisper, "Is it true?" Daniel swallowed hard. His silence was confirmation. Tears threatened, but I refused to let them fall there in front of strangers. I pushed my chair back slowly and stood. My legs trembled, but I kept my voice steady. "How long?" I asked him. He rubbed his forehead. It wasn't serious. That was his answer. Not an apology. Not denial. A minimization. Mr. Carter sat down. His expression unreadable. The damage was done. I walked toward the exit without another word. Each step felt detached from my body, like I was watching myself from a distance. I heard Daniel call my name behind me, but I didn't stop. Outside, the night air hit my face, cold and sharp. I finally let myself breathe. My hands shook uncontrollably. 3 months. Late meetings. Extra conferences. The sudden secrecy. All of it rearranged itself into a painful, coherent picture. Daniel came out moments later. "Please," he said, reaching for my arm. I pulled away. "Don't." He looked desperate, not remorseful. Desperate about consequences. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. "Then why didn't you end it?" I asked. He had no answer. Cars passed by on the street, headlights streaking across the pavement. Inside the restaurant, life continued as if my world hadn't just collapsed. "I was going to tell you," he said weakly. "When?" "After the promotion." My voice cracked despite my effort to stay composed. He stared at the ground. In that moment, something inside me shifted permanently. The trust one had built over years wasn't shattered in a dramatic explosion. It dissolved quietly like sugar in water, leaving behind a bitter taste. I realized the worst part wasn't that his boss exposed him. It was that a stranger felt more responsible for my dignity than my own husband did. I looked at Daniel, the man I had defended, supported, believed in, and I saw someone I didn't recognize. "I had no idea what your boss was about to say tonight," I told him, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I know exactly what I'm about to say now." He looked up, fear flickering in his eyes, and for the first time that evening I felt clarity instead of confusion. The drive home was silent except for the faint hum of the engine and Daniel's uneven breathing beside me. I kept my eyes fixed on the road, though I barely registered the traffic lights changing or the turns I made. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, but inside, everything was unraveling. He tried to speak 3 times before I finally said, "Not now." My voice sounded unfamiliar to my own ears, calm, controlled, detached. I didn't trust myself to say more without breaking. When we pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly the same as it always had. Warm porch light. Curtains drawn. The life we had built sitting quietly behind those walls. It felt cruel that nothing on the outside reflected the devastation inside me. Daniel followed me in, closing the door softly as if noise itself might shatter what little remained. I set my purse down, slipped off my shoes, and turned to face him. "How long?" I asked again. He exhaled slowly. "About 6 months." 6 months. Twice what his boss had said. The correction sliced deeper than the confession. "You lied again," I said. "I panicked," he replied. "I didn't want to hurt you more." The irony was almost laughable. "Who is she?" I asked. He hesitated. "Her name is Lauren. She's in marketing." A name. A department. A real person with a role in the company. Not some abstract mistake. Not a one-time lapse in judgment. How did it start? Late project meetings. We were working closely. It just happened. Nothing just happens for 6 months. I walked into the kitchen, needing space, needing air. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself as images formed in my mind. Him laughing with her, sharing private jokes, confiding frustrations he once shared with me. Emotional intimacy layered over physical betrayal. "Did you love her?" I asked, still facing away from him. "No," he answered quickly. Too quickly. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" He ran a hand through his hair. "It was stress. Pressure. The promotion. I felt seen. Appreciated." I turned around sharply. "I didn't appreciate you. That's not what I meant." But it was exactly what he meant. I thought back to the past several months. The missed anniversary dinner he blamed on a last-minute client emergency. The weekend conference that required him to stay overnight. The unfamiliar hotel charge on our joint credit card he brushed off as an accounting delay. Each memory rearranged itself into truth. I asked you that night if there was someone else, I said quietly. You looked me in the eye and said no. He swallowed. I was going to end it. When? He didn't answer. Silence settled between us, heavy and accusing. Does she know about me? I asked. Yes. And she was fine with that? She's separated. Convenient that I felt anger rising now, replacing the numbness. So what was the plan, Daniel? Continue until you got caught? Leave me if things got serious? Or keep both lives running side by side? There was no plan, he insisted. It got out of control. Affairs don't spiral accidentally for half a year. They're chosen. Over and over I studied his face. The same face I had woken up next to for 8 years. The same eyes that once looked at me like I was the center of his world. Now they were filled with fear, not love. Fear of losing stability. Fear of consequences. Fear of exposure. Did you ever think about what this would do to me? I asked. Every day, he said. Then why continue? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. There was no explanation that could survive honesty. My mind drifted to the small changes I had ignored. The way he guarded his phone. The new passwords. The sudden gym membership. The unfamiliar cologne. I had sensed distance but convinced myself it was temporary stress. I chose trust over suspicion. I feel stupid, I admitted, my voice cracking for the first time. You're not, he said quickly. I defended you. When my friends joked about corporate men and temptations, I said you weren't like that. He stepped closer. I'm still that man. No, I said firmly. That man wouldn't risk humiliating his wife in front of his entire company. He flinched. Why did your boss know before I did? He looked ashamed. HR started investigating. Someone reported us. He confronted me. I begged him not to fire me. So he gave you a choice? Yes. And you chose to protect your job over telling your wife the truth. His silence confirmed it. The realization cut deeper than the affair itself. I wasn't his priority. Not when it mattered most. I walked past him toward the stairs. I need space. Please don't shut me out, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. We can fix this. I paused on the first step. You didn't think about fixing us when you were with her. It was physical, he insisted again. It didn't mean anything. 6 months means something, I replied. Upstairs, I closed the bedroom door and leaned against it, finally letting the tears fall freely. The bed looked untouched, innocent. Yet I couldn't stop wondering how many nights he had come home from her and laid beside me, pretending nothing had happened. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Daniel downstairs. I'm sorry. I love you. I stared at the words. Love felt like a foreign language now. For the first time since our marriage began, I didn't know if the man downstairs was someone I could ever trust again. And the most painful part was realizing that even if I wanted to believe him, something inside me had already begun to detach. The foundation we built over 8 years had cracked. And no apology, no matter how desperate, could erase the sound of his boss saying the words I would never unhear. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail in slow, merciless clarity. 6 months. The number echoed in my head like a ticking clock counting backward through every memory I thought was secure. Around 3 a.m, I picked up my phone and did something I had never done before. I searched her name. Lauren. It didn't take long to find her social media. Polished photos. Confident smile. Professional headshots from company events. In 2 of the photos, Daniel stood in the background. Not close enough to seem inappropriate. Just close enough to mean something now. My stomach tightened. I scrolled further. There were pictures from a marketing conference 3 months ago. The same weekend Daniel claimed he was too busy to answer my calls. I remembered sitting alone at my sister's birthday dinner, defending him again. He's under pressure, I had said. Under pressure. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to sit in uncertainty. I needed the full truth. Not fragments filtered through his guilt. When I came downstairs, Daniel was on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes. He looked exhausted, eyes red, phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. "We need to talk," I said. That he straightened immediately. "I know. No interruptions. No minimizing. No half-truths. I want everything." He nodded slowly. That I sat across from him, leaving space between us that felt symbolic. "Did you ever plan to leave me?" I asked. "No? Did you tell her that?" Silence stretched too long. "Daniel, I told her I was confused," he admitted. Confused. That word again, used like a shield for deliberate choices. "Did you say you loved her?" He hesitated, and in that hesitation I found my answer. "Yes," he whispered. The air left my lungs in a slow, painful exhale. "So it wasn't just physical. It started that way," he insisted. "But things got complicated." "Complicated means emotional," I replied. He rubbed his face with both hands. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. But it did." Tears formed in his eyes. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered sitting alone on our anniversary, staring at a cold dinner plate. "Does she know you told me?" I asked. "No. After last night. I ended it." "You ended it because you got exposed," I said calmly. "Not because you chose me. That's not fair. Isn't it?" He had no response. I stood up and walked to the window. Sunlight streamed through the glass, illuminating the ordinary street outside. People walking dogs. Cars heading to work. Life moving forward without hesitation. I felt like I was standing still in the wreckage of something invisible to everyone else. "Did you ever think about what this would do to my self-worth?" I asked quietly. "To my ability to trust?" "I was selfish," he admitted. "Yes, you were." The honesty stung, but it was the first real thing he had said. "I need to know something else," I continued. "If your boss hadn't forced this, would you still be seeing her?" He didn't answer immediately, and that silence was louder than anything he could have said. "Yes," I concluded for him. His shoulders dropped. "Probably." That word shattered whatever fragile hope lingered inside me. It wasn't over until someone else intervened. Not guilt. Not love. Not conscience. I turned back toward him, feeling a strange calm settle over me. The chaos inside had burned itself out, leaving clarity in its place. "You didn't just cheat," I said. "You built another relationship. You invested time, emotion, intimacy. That's not a mistake. That's a choice repeated daily." He looked up at me, desperate. "I can fix this. I'll quit my job. We can go to counseling. I'll do anything. Anything now." But where was that determination when it mattered? "Why did your boss really expose you?" I asked. "He said it was a liability issue," Daniel replied. "2 employees involved. It could create legal problems." "So he wasn't protecting me," I said softly. "He was protecting the company." Daniel looked down. The last illusion dissolved. There was no heroic moral stand. No one had prioritized my dignity. I had simply become collateral damage in a corporate risk assessment. The humiliation from the dinner returned in waves. The whispers, the pitying looks. I felt stripped of privacy, forced into awareness without preparation. "I need to ask you one final question," I said. He looked up, hope flickering again. "If she asked you today to leave with her, no consequences, no job at stake, would you go?" The silence this time was unbearable. He didn't say yes. But he didn't say no either. And in that suspended moment I understood everything. Love doesn't hesitate. Commitment doesn't calculate alternatives. I felt something inside me detach completely, not rage, not grief, but acceptance. The man sitting across from me wasn't the partner I thought I married. Maybe he had been once. But somewhere along the way he had chosen ambition, validation, and secrecy over honesty. "I can't compete with your uncertainty," I said quietly. "I won't beg someone to choose me." His eyes filled with panic. "Please don't say that. I deserve someone who doesn't need exposure to remember their vows." He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. For the first time since this began, I wasn't confused. I wasn't asking for reassurance. I wasn't searching for explanations. I was seeing him clearly, and clarity can be more painful than betrayal itself. I packed a small suitcase before the sun had fully risen. Not out of drama. Not to prove a point. I packed because staying in that house, breathing the same air thick with lies, felt impossible. Daniel stood in the doorway of the bedroom watching me fold clothes with mechanical precision. He looked smaller somehow, stripped of the confidence he carried so easily in boardrooms and public spaces. "You don't have to leave," he said quietly. "I do," I replied. "This is our home." "It was," I corrected gently. He stepped inside. "We can rebuild. People survive this." "Some do," I agreed. "But surviving isn't the same as healing." I zipped the suitcase and finally looked at him. There was fear in his expression, but still no deep understanding of what he had broken. He saw consequences. I saw collapse. "I need space to think without you trying to convince me," I said. "Without your apologies filling every silence." "I'm not trying to manipulate you," he insisted. "Every plea right now feels like pressure," I answered. "And I need clarity, not pressure." He sank onto the edge of the bed. "I'll quit my job. I'll cut contact completely. I'll give you access to everything. My phone, my email. Anything. Transparency after betrayal isn't trust," I said. "It's surveillance. I don't want to become someone who checks your messages at midnight." His jaw tightened. "So that's it? 8 years gone. You let them go 6 months ago." The words hung between us. He covered his face with his hands. "I never meant to lose you. But you were willing to risk me." Silence followed, thick and undeniable. I carried my suitcase downstairs. Each step felt heavy but certain. I wasn't fueled by anger anymore. The anger had burned itself out overnight, replaced by something steadier. Self-preservation. To the front door. He tried one last time. "I love you." I paused. "I believe you think you do," I said carefully. "But love isn't just a feeling. It's consistency. It's choosing the same person even when no one is watching." His eyes filled with tears. "I chose you. When it was safe," I replied. "Not when it was hard." I opened the door. Cool morning air brushed against my face, sharp and grounding. "Where will you go?" he asked, voice cracking. "My sister's for now. And after that? I don't know yet." And for the first time in years, that uncertainty didn't terrify me. It felt honest. I stepped outside, but before closing the door, I looked back at him one final time. I saw the man I had built a life with. I saw the memories, the vacations, the quiet Sundays. I saw what we had been, but I also saw what we had become. "You didn't just break my trust," I said softly. "You changed how I see myself in this marriage. I was loyal, present, proud of us. And now I have to rebuild my sense of worth separate from you." He nodded slowly, tears falling freely now. "I hope you figure out why you needed someone else to feel validated," I continued. "But I won't stay while you do." I closed the door before he could answer. The drive to my sister's house felt different from the drive home the night before. Last night was shock. This morning was resolved. My phone buzzed several times. Messages from him. Long paragraphs. Promises. Regret. I didn't open them. To a red light. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were tired, swollen from crying, but there was something else there too, strength I hadn't noticed before. Infidelity doesn't just break trust. It fractures identity. It makes you question whether you were blind, naive, insufficient. I had cycled through all those thoughts in a matter of hours. But as the miles passed, one truth rose above the noise. His betrayal was a reflection of his choices, not my value. When I reached my sister's driveway, she was already waiting outside, arms crossed tightly over her chest in protective instinct. I stepped out of the car and into her embrace, finally allowing myself to feel the weight of it all. "I didn't see it coming," I whispered against her shoulder. "That doesn't make you foolish," she said firmly. "It makes him accountable." Inside her house, in the quiet of a spare bedroom, I set my suitcase down and sat on the edge of the bed. My life felt split into before and after. Before his boss stood up. Before the truth was forced into the open. Before I realized love alone isn't enough without loyalty. I didn't know what the future would look like. Divorce papers. Counseling. Separation. Those decisions could come later. What mattered in that moment was that I had chosen myself. Not out of revenge. Not out of pride, but out of respect that I had no idea what my husband's boss was about to say that night. But I'm grateful he said it, because sometimes the truth arrives in the most humiliating way possible, and still ends up being the thing that saves you.